Hello, America. I'm Mark Levin. This is Life, Liberty, and Levin, and we're here tonight to discuss an issue that I think is of grave importance. What happens if the electrical grid goes down, and is it easy to take it out? And who might take it out, and what can we do to protect it?
What you just saw was Mark Levin asking a question that no mainstream media personnel will ask. And that is this: what would happen if an EMP struck America? Should we be concerned about that EMP? And the answer is an astounding yes. As you're going to see in clips of the interview that I'm going to show you in a moment, he brings on the director of EMP, somebody who studied them for the government, Patriot, who is also the executive director of the Task Force on National and Homeland Security. But they go on to detail what are the repercussions that it will be on America in the event of an EMP, and should we be concerned? Now, some of the things that they discuss that I'm not going to show you, the first one is the electrical grid here in America and how it's divided into three sections. As you can see on the map, there's a western section, an eastern section, and a Texas section. If parts of these grids are attacked in one section, it can affect another section, and vice versa. They go on to talk about that if a Carrington-Hodgson event happened, now that's an event that happened in 1859. I've brought this up on my channel multiple times, but if a solar storm were to hit America like it did in 1859, then we could be looking at pretty severe power outages and a grid failure here in America, and that is discussed during that interview. But he further goes on to tell Mark Levin that, look, these things happen every 150 years. So it's not a question of if it's going to happen and when and where it will affect on the globe. This is why I constantly urge you guys to prepare. But the question that has to be asked here in America is, if an EMP were to strike, is there anything that would help bring up our power system? Would we have enough transformers to fix the grid? Well, that answer was directly asked by Mark Levin, who said, where is the status of the transformers? The transformers are what give us power on our grid, or break down the main systems and give us the ability to bring into our homes and businesses. Well, check out what he had to say.
Unfortunately, like so many things, we don't make fundamental elements of the electric grid in this country anymore. The transformers aren't manufactured in the United States anymore. We have to import them from South Korea or Germany. And if these transformers were destroyed, it would basically end us as a civilization.
Do we have an inventory of them, backup sources for them within our own country?
We have a small number of replacement transformers, less than 1% in reserve.
Not my words, but those of Patriot, a very important person that studied these things with the government. Now, in conclusion to the entire video, he was asked, what repercussions this would have on America. Should we be concerned? What is the status? What would we look like if we were hit by either an EMP, an electrical magnetic pulse, or if we were hit by some sort of massive solar storm like the Carrington event of 1859? What would happen to America? Well, here's what he had to say.
In fact, there's only a 30-day food supply in the country to feed 320 million people. And water would stop immediately. When you turn on the tap, it requires millions of volts in order to deliver that water through your tap. And the commission couldn't figure out how would we keep 320 million people alive with no food and no water, possibly for years. We estimate that if we had a blackout in this country that lasted 1 year, and that's entirely possible in these scenarios that we're talking about, we could lose up to 90% of our population.
Not my words. Very terrifying words, if you will, but 90% of the population to die in the event that happens. Again, please make sure you guys are prepared. You heard him talk about food. You heard him talk about water. That's why I use things like My Patriot Supply. Links below. That's why I also have tangible gold, silver, precious metals on hand. And I partner with Noble Gold Investments and other investors, because these are the types of things that we're going to need in the event of something like that, or any kind of catastrophe. So please make sure you check check out my partners and sponsors below. But Noble Gold Investment, you're going to want to have that tangible gold. But that aside, we need to be prepared at all times. And the reason that I bring this to you is not to terrify you, not to call or be labeled a fearmonger myself. People are going to call me that no matter what. And all love to you guys, but it is what it is. And it's not a question of if, but when and where, and a matter of time. And that's the things that we are being warned about, not by an average Joe like me, but by people and government leaders in organizations. And the mainstream media, for the most part, tries to slip it under the rug, but not this time. At least it's being addressed on a minor level. And I like Mark Levin. I think he is an amazing man. So I have that interview in its full below in the links if you want to check that out. That said, North Korea is a risk for us on this. And this is not according to me, but according to Bloomberg. Check out this report. It was put out by Bloomberg. April 28th of this year, North Korea's secret weapon, a huge electromagnetic storm. Now you have to remember that even though there's good talks of Kim Jong-un and the Trump, him giving up his nuclear weapons is highly unlikely. But the report goes on to say, we also need to consider North Korea's ability to deploy 1 or 2 nuclear weapons at an altitude over the continental U.S. in order to create a devastating burst of energy called an EMP pulse, or electromagnetic pulse. While the science of EMP is not fully settled, and please keep that in mind also, largely because it is impossible to test on a grand scale, there is plenty of credible evidence that they constitute a real threat, especially in the context of North Korea. It goes on, the short burst of vastly powerful electro and magnetic shocks involved in an EMP could potentially devastate everything from your phone to the entire United States power grid. Imagine thousands of lightning strikes hitting every home business in America. Devastation unlike we ever have seen before. Now, again, they say all the studies on the effects of the EMP aren't 100% conclusive, but because they're hard to tell. But either way, these are the things that they predict are very possible and highly possibilities of what they could do in America, basing that off of some of the stuff that happened in 1859 with the Carrington event. Now, that said, the Obama administration did nothing to help our power grid, absolutely nothing. But the good news here is Donald Trump is. Check out this report from December of last year. This is from the Examiner, Washington Examiner. Trump is the first president to protect the electric grid from EMP cyber attacks. The great news is we have a president who is aware of what is going on and is taking precautions. The other thing that we must remember is that they are doing main and massive drills all across the country to prepare for a power outage, to prepare for an EMP attack, to prepare for a grid failure due to a solar storm or a solar flare or anything of that nature. FEMA has also written a document and prepared for the first time in a very long time, although their report ends after a year. They really have no where to go after that year is over. I've read the report in their full, and they stop at a year and say basically it will take 4 to 10 years to fix a massively devastated grid, meaning we need to produce more transformers, we need to make transformers. These are ways that we can prevent against it now, is to up the transformers that we have at our local level. So something to encourage your senators and congressmen to do. Anyhow, thanks again for tuning in. I'd love to get your comments below. I'm not saying an EMP or a CME is going to happen. I don't know. Again, it's a matter of when it could happen. It could happen in 100 years. It could happen in 1 year. It could happen in 50 years. Nobody really knows when. All we know is it happened in the past, and it has a time frame of about 150 some odd years that it comes and goes. And that's just your solar one. That doesn't take into account your countries with EMP weaponry. Anyhow, thanks again for tuning in. Please comment below, and don't forget to check out all my partners in the description box. I'm Lisa Haven, signing out.